Here's the Bubba SKS. This little adventure started when I bought a cheap SKS. It's in plastic, wrapped in cosmoline, so I didn't notice when I bought it. It was only 150 bucks, so I didn't really get too upset about the whole thing. It was cheap, even by Canadian terms. It was cheap for an SKS. And it's a refurb too. But the front sight hood had a split down the top middle. There's a hole that goes down where you can adjust the front sight. Well, it had a split all the way across. Plus it was bent, badly bent. Considering how springy that stuff is, I kind of wonder if it happened at the armory or wherever they refurbished it or something. I tried to bend it back a little bit and it just immediately snapped, so I have no idea how it got bent in the first place without breaking it, unless it was heated up at the time. Maybe they heated up to install that front piece, I don't know. But anyway, this is how I solved the problem. Try and get it to focus on the actual rifle, not the branches behind it. Hard to tell if it's doing it at all. But anyway, I just did that with a hand grinder and a Dremel. Seemed to do the trick. Doesn't look too bad. Of course, I pulled the bayonet off just to lighten it up. I went with a cheap ATI folding stock. So right away the cleaning rod's gone anyway. I might as well get rid of the bayonet just to lighten it up a little bit. As much as I find the bayonet amusing to have on there, I have another SKS that's an original shape that I just use as a regular shooter grade SKS. And it's got the bayonet. It's a traditional look. Anyway, continuing on. Second thing I did, I wanted to tame down the ejection, just so it didn't really throw the brass nearly as hard as it does. Anyone who has an SKS is going to know exactly what I'm talking about. These things really fling the brass. I think they're made to throw brass well, even in minus 40 degree weather, and the rifle's dirty and it'll still eject brass fine. Well, I don't do things like that with this rifle, so I don't need it to be that crazy. So what I did was I added a hole on this side and another one on the other side. Start small, very small, work your way up. Get to where your ejection is where you like it. It isn't going too crazy, and leave it at that. Next, continuing on the theme of the casing ejection, I trimmed off the side of the ejection port. Normally it has an angle cut. It comes down, it's square at the front here, but at the back part it'll come down on a 45 degree angle. I'm really not, it's obviously intentional. I really have no idea why they do it. As what it does is when the bolt comes back and the casing kicks out, it hits that and almost guides it straight up. I have no idea why they want it to do that, but basically what it does is it either hits the covering above me or the fluorescent tube or whatever. It basically pitches it right in front. So getting rid of this right away moved the ejection to more of a 2 o'clock pattern. So now with the two mods done, it'll basically pitch the brass out to a 45 degree angle in front of me at about the 2 o'clock position. So not quite horizontal, up just a tad, and just lands the brass about 7 feet forward on a 45 degree angle. Let's see if we can, I have some spent brass. So here's the rifle. I just fired some. I'll go forward. It's hard to see them in there. There's a couple there. And another couple right in here. These were from me firing. I pick up my casings. I don't leave them behind. When I'm done shooting, there's literally no sign what was happening here. But there it is. So this is how far away and what kind of angle we're looking at. So that was immediately a good success. It allowed me to put whatever I wanted for a scope and not have to worry about a shell deflector. This is probably the worst scope ever. It's a UTG Bugbuster, probably for an airsoft rifle or pellet rifle. It actually works really good on this gun. I was hoping it would sit back far enough that I could still use the stripper clips, but really for where it's comfortable and so on, and where it needs to be, it's just a bit too far forward for it, so I went ahead and put the covers on and called it good. But the scope works for the SKS. Eventually I'll get something a little better, but... And of course I Duracoated the whole thing. Keep the rust off it. The scope mount is a Promag mount. Just a steel mount. Nothing too exciting about it. No, it doesn't normally have 6 holes. Normally just has 2. I tried a different type of mount to get a scope on and had 2 holes here in the receiver. And it didn't work out. It was just ended up to be too low, and I had to pull the mount off every time I wanted to clean the rifle. That should be noted too. This, I can rotate with this mount, the height it is. I can pop the cover off, pull the bolt back, and just rotate everything right out. So I don't need to remove the scope bracket there to clean the rifle. It just stays right the way it is. This scope mount has been on for over 1,400 rounds. I've checked it for tightness and it hasn't budged. Now I did use the mild type of Loctite on there, but those screws have held. I was going to replace them with basically Torx screws, something a little more tasteful. And honestly, it hasn't moved, and until it does, I'm just going to leave those screws alone. I'm not going to mess with a good thing. This rifle's been fired a bit, so it's kind of dirty right now. But there you have it. It's the SKS. Bub it up. Nice folding stock for making it compact. Despite all the junk added to it, I think the whole thing is a little bit lighter than with the wood stock. So it works out pretty good. Here's the SKS being fired fairly rapidly.